For me, spirit guides is about 20 years ago is when I started kind of talking to mine outright and dealing with past lives. And I started talking to them more and kind of researching it more and figuring out who some of them were. There's a couple of spirit guides that are from my last life or last reincarnation, and they were both Native American. And they've actually showed themselves to me at one of my events. They came in physically and started talking to me. And then a few weeks after, I realized, they were like, you do realize that was us. So some of them will physically show themselves. But spirit guides are very strong protectors. A lot of people don't know they're there until they might come in with a session with a medium. And then we'll say, okay, this is what we're picking up on. This is maybe a deceased loved one. This is a spirit guide from a reincarnation, or maybe a guide whose energy was just attracted to your energy.
In the paranormal war room, the legends arise. We're diving deep down where the truth never lies. Diving deep down where the truth never lies. Unravel the mysteries, let the stories unfold. This beat, these tales are daring and bold.
Okay, today on the Paranormal War Room, we are honored to welcome Lori Hines. Now, she is an author, an intuitive speaker, a practicing psychic medium with deep roots in the paranormal and metaphysical world. Lori's work spans from presenting workshops at conferences, libraries, and colleges to volunteering with the Find Me group. It is a collective of psychic mediums who apply their gifts to help locate missing persons and assist with cold cases. Her unique perspective blends psychic intuition with history, archaeology, Native American culture, and spiritual exploration. Her mystery novels, including the Ancient One series, Caves of Watchers, Whispers Among the Ruins, and Visions of Time, weave together supernatural elements with the rich cultural tapestry of the American Southwest, winning recognitions in national library festivals and New Age award circles. Whether she's discussing psychic archaeology, intuitive insight, or her experiences with portals and spirits connected to historical landscape, Lori brings a rare depth of experience and authenticity to the realm of unexplained. Lori, welcome to the War Room.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Corky, for inviting me on.
Yeah, I heard you on the Paranormal 411. You done a live with them a few weeks ago, and I was just like, man, I'd like to talk to her. So I reached out to you, and you was gracious enough to say, yeah, you'd come on to my show, and I just letting you know I appreciate you coming on here, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
I love my favorite hosts are those from Tennessee. You guys are the friendliest. That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you got going on.
Let's see, where do I start? I've been a psychic medium for probably about 20 years. I can't believe it's been that long. Some mediums start out when they know when they maybe by the age of 3 or 4, or maybe earlier, that they have those abilities. But for me, it didn't start until after I wrote probably into my second book, which is The Caves of the Watchers. And I felt like I was getting in touch with my past lives at that point, or what other people refer to as reincarnation. So I started out doing readings. Past life readings is pretty much what I was specializing in, and maybe picking up on auras. Then I developed into the more clients I met with, the more I was able to get in touch with people from the other side, deceased loved ones and spirit guides. And so that was my focus. And so that's pretty much what it is for most of my readings. It's usually a combination of past lives, but mostly people are looking to get in touch with their deceased loved ones. Where are they? How are they doing? Have they crossed over? Are they in a good place? And that's usually what a lot of the conversation revolves around. As we had talked about on Dave and Jason shows, the Paranormal 411, I actually am a part of the Find Me group. And so we deal with a lot of cold cases and recent disappearances. We just had a case come in a few days ago that involved a recent disappearance. So
Really?
The former CIA agent that manages the group, I believe he's the one that started it. And he'll send us emails. There's like 100 of us in the group, and he'll send us all emails saying, this is the circumstances. This person just disappeared on this date. He'll give us the name, place of birth for the astrologies, time of birth for the people that study astrology, because that's kind of how they work. But we all work in different ways. So I'll deal with remote viewing, and Corky, you had asked about that on Paranormal 411.
I'm fascinated with remote viewing. fascinating.
and like the writing, automatic writing, remote viewing.
Yeah.
A lot of them do the astrology part. There's so many different methods as a medium. People don't necessarily realize that. There's crystal gazing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
fascinating how many different methods you can use
It really
to help
is.
get in
Yeah.
touch. Yeah. And then dreams are a pretty important part. One of the cases I dealt with fairly recently, she actually showed me what happened in a dream, and it was
Really.
pretty vivid. Yeah, and it was pretty horrifying. But I kind of was able to help use that, and she came to me and I talked to her, and I did some remote viewing with that one, and then I got back to the CIA agent and let him know what was going on. And he actually came back and asked me some more detail about it. So that's always kind of good because it kind of tells
Yeah.
you might be heading in the right direction when they start asking
Right.
about more details. So, it can be fascinating, and people are like, "Well, that's pretty interesting." I'm like, "Yes and no." When you start getting vivid, horrifying details in your dreams, which happens frequently,
Hmm.
and then I know, okay, this is gonna be related to either an upcoming case or maybe the one I'm working on now. It's usually an upcoming case, so
Right.
and it's pretty horrifying, especially when you see that they're not alive and how they died. Um,
That
because
fascinates me. How
it's
do you deal with something like that?
Mhm.
'Cause I just think that would haunt you, if you have to deal with stuff like
Yes.
that.
It literally does because they'll come to you in your dreams, like I said, and they'll show
Yeah.
you a visual of what happened. And
Wow.
the minute I wake up, I ask my spirit guides, I'm like, was that related to a case? And they're like, yes, it is. And you might want to start writing some of these things down when you wake up. But I usually can remember them. Sometimes I will start making notes. And then in that case, like the one that was really horrifying in the past month, 3 weeks later, I got the case. So I was kind of able to tell him a little bit about what had happened. And I knew it was planned based on what she told me and what I saw in the dream, but it was kind of for a different, kind of an unusual. I can't give the name or too many details, but
Right.
I don't think it's in the media at all. But it was pretty horrifying, and I've had other dreams related to that too. So then I'll try and get in touch with the person who was murdered if that was the case, because a lot of these are
Wow.
cold cases. And that's
Yeah.
why I was able to get in touch with her, and she came to me, she's like, "I was the one that gave you the dream," and so she kinda gave me some more details on it, and I actually got some names of the people. She said she knew the people who had murdered her,
Wow.
and which I thought was kind of unusual, but a lot actually, I've heard in a number of cases that can usually be the case. A lot of times people
Mhm.
do know. So she gave me names, which I provided to him, and a lot of times there's 100 of us, so he could get facts from, and not everybody's able to participate in every case. People have
Mhm.
families, people have lives. You've been getting cases pretty often, so all you can do is work on what you can do. If you can't work a case, they don't hold it against you. He just asks that you give him the time, as much
Right.
time as possible. It can be brutal. I'm sure I'm not the only one when I say this, but you doubt what you're seeing and hearing. Is it, okay, am I
Mhm.
giving the right facts here? But what's interesting is one medium can say, okay, well, I'm picking up that this is what happened. This is where the murder took place, or this is where the living person is now. They're not deceased, but this is where they are now. And you can have a bunch of others that might come up with similar facts. And so that's
Right.
kind of, I think, how they go by. Okay, well, this seems to be a lead. This is where some of the mediums are saying this person's body is located, so we might follow that lead. I think that's kind of how they work. Um, it's interesting, but it's brutal at the same time because I'm sure I'm not the only one that has dreams about stuff like this. I'm sure a lot of the mediums actually have that. So
Right. And I think
it's
that would be mentally exhausting too to have to,
yes, yes,
because nobody likes to
it
have
is.
nightmares. At least I don't, anyhow.
No, and
I
this
tell
one
you.
was really, yeah, there was blood all over the place. So it's
Oh yeah.
just I woke up and I could not even focus. I was so depressed and I was just ready to
Hmm.
cry. I'm just like, it's horrifying because some of these people are I'm not saying that it's any worse if they're older or younger, but when you see somebody that's a lot younger, it's just like, what the heck? Why did this have to happen? So
Yeah, for
it's
real.
just, yeah, it's hard on
I,
all of us.
well, I tell you what, Lori, this stuff fascinates me, and I've got so many questions. I don't even know where to start tonight. Um, let's start with spirit guides because a lot of people I
Okay.
interview, especially psychic mediums, they talk a lot
Mhm.
about spirit guides. Can
Oh,
you
yeah.
kind of explain what that is and how you knew you had spirit guides and just kind of explain that to me and we'll start with that.
That's a great question because every medium should be talking about those.
Right. And most
Or
do. Most do.
angels.
Yeah.
Or angels and spirit guides. They kind of can both act in the same capacity. For me, spirit guides is about 20 years ago is when I started kind of talking to mine outright and dealing with past lives, and I started talking to them more and kind of researching it more and figuring out who some of them were. There's a couple of spirit guides that are from my last life or last reincarnation, and they were both Native American, and they've actually showed themselves to me at one of my events. They came in
Wow.
physically and started
Wow.
talking to me. And then a few weeks after, I realized they were like, you do realize that was us. So some of them will physically show themselves, but spirit guides are very strong protectors. A lot of people don't know they're there until they might come in with a session with a medium, and then we'll say, okay, this is what we're picking up on. This is maybe a deceased loved one. This is a spirit guide from a reincarnation, or maybe a guide whose energy was just attracted to your energy. So they are very strong protectors. We all have both angels. We all have a number of different spirit guides. I mean, usually if somebody says, oh, how many guides do I have? I can usually give a number, as
Mhm.
well as the number of past lives you might have had. Um, a lot of us don't realize how many reincarnations we've had, and that it could be hundreds, it could be 50, it could be 100, it could be 10. It depends on the person and their purpose, possibly. Um, so, like, I've done a lot of travels, and I've been told by some of my spirit guides that, some of us have come through to you via your travels, and that happens with a lot of people. So, again, very strong protectors. Angels can actually show themselves as people. They do actually have names, from my understanding and from my angels. They can actually appear in front of you, talk to you like a physical person. That has happened to me, one within the past year, I think.
Wow.
So it's pretty fascinating. You just have to be open to it. You just have to be open to the energy. And some people
Mhm.
say, yeah, this has happened to me. And there's a certain sensation you'll get when you do meet them. I've talked to some people who say I've requested to meet them, and they literally show themselves. And so it's fascinating. And it's just, if you keep open to it, and I tell people, they're like, how do I talk to my deceased loved one or spirit guides? I'm like, just talk like I'm quirky, like I'm talking to you.
Right.
Um, whether it's telepathically or just talking out loud, if you're in a really bad situation. These days, so many people, a lot of my friends, so many people I talk to are just not in a good situation these days. Everyone is really struggling mentally, emotionally,
Yep.
and I just tell people, just talk outright to them. Let them know you're there. Let them know that you need them. Talk to them, because the more you talk to them, you have to be open to listening to what they have to say. And even as a medium with a lot of experience, I still struggle with what I'm hearing and seeing. That's a lot of mediums. We all do. It's human nature. But you have to
Yeah.
be open to visuals, because they might show you visuals if they think you're a highly visual person. You might hear a voice in your head from a deceased loved one, or perhaps another guide that you're just not familiar with.
Mhm.
And you just have to kind of trust that's what you're hearing. Keep talking to them. Keep asking them to give you messages, and just stay open to it. And that's how it works. It's not necessarily going to work overnight. For me, it was years. I've been doing
Right.
this for maybe 20 years. A lot of mediums start from like day one, when they're born. They just know. It's just with them when they're born. It takes practice, but I tell people, don't be impatient. Just keep talking to that loved one. Usually they're trying to connect with somebody who's deceased, a boyfriend, a husband, niece, and nephew, their
Mhm.
parents. And so I just say, if you have to, I started out using a pendulum, and you just dictate, okay, it's horizontal or back and forth for yes, or it could be, a lot of times it's like round for no. So I tell people, just use a pendulum. If you're having trouble trusting what you're seeing and hearing, do that in order to talk to them. And that will actually help build. That's what happened with me.
Mhm.
My spirit guides were like, I'd started doing that for a few months. I'm like, okay, you're done. You can hear us. You don't need to use that. Gift it to somebody else. And they made me stop using the pendulum. Some people
Wow.
don't feel that secure with it. So, and that's fine. I taught a friend recently how to use it, and she was communicating with a deceased boyfriend he's actually one of my spirit guides now as well, because I've given so many messages from him to her. And that
Wow.
happens as well. Yeah, they're
That
high.
is
And Corky,
awesome.
you've got a lot as well. I'm kind of seeing some
Awesome.
male ones behind you. So yeah.
Really?
Yes, you
Man,
got
that
like one on either side of you right now. So
really? That's
yeah.
amazing, actually. That's amazing. And I tell you, I interviewed a lady named Alicia last week, and she was a a medium as well. And you guys are, it's just like you guys are talking about the same stuff. And that's why I don't see how people can say, because a lot of people are naysayers and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But man, everybody's telling me the same stuff, so I just know there's got to be truth to it, man. Just the
Yeah, when
same
you
spirit guides
mhm,
and stuff like that. It's
exactly.
fascinating. It's fascinating to me.
And
But
even Kelly always tells people when they doubt mediums or when he hears people talking like that, he's like, "Well,
mhm,
then you maybe need to deal with some of the ones that I have in my group," because some of them have actually helped find bodies,
mhm.
help find we help find people that are alive, so people don't realize how much mediums and psychic investigators can really help with closure. They don't they a lot of people think we're all fake, and it's
Yeah,
like, well,
there's
then
a
start talking to cops and detectives and FBI to find out
exactly,
what we can
exactly.
do, so
Yeah, yeah. Like I was, that's amazing. That's some of the same stuff she told me.
okay.
Wow, this is absolutely fascinating. Let me see where I want to go next with this. I got so many questions, man. All right, let's go into the remote viewing thing. How did you? Let's start with how did you figure out you had that ability with remote viewing, and maybe explain what it is for maybe some people that don't know what it is.
No, so remote viewing is to me, it's kind of like a higher level of clairvoyance. So I started
Mm-hmm.
studying up on it more on YouTube because they have all kinds of practice videos on there. They have government people in the government who
Mm-hmm.
are heavily involved in it, who have done it themselves. And so they're talking, teaching people in classes about how to do it. I think anybody can develop psychic medium abilities. It's the same with remote viewing. And the government
Mm-hmm.
people that do it will tell you the same thing. That's one of the first things you'll hear from them is anybody can do it. It just kind of takes focus and practice. And even then, I still have doubts as to what I'm picking up on. Okay, I'd mentioned on Paranormal 411 the story I told you guys about seeing Bigfoot
Yeah.
and the Dogman. It was literally when I did a remote viewing session, it wasn't for a cold case, but I was curious to see after seeing Bigfoot in person a month or two ago. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to see where this leads. And so because they keep telling me I'm going to be having more experiences with Bigfoot. So I think I requested to take a tour to see where that Bigfoot was located or just to kind of learn because there are a lot of mines here in Payson, and that's where we were driving
Mm-hmm.
around on her 4x4 when I actually saw Bigfoot. And so when I did the remote viewing, it took me right to a mine. I saw the mine entrance. I was taken through it. I literally had my hand on the wooden beam. So that's kind of for me, that's a differentiator because it's to me, remote viewing, they teach you feel all your senses. Use your what are you smelling? What are you feeling? Are you
Mm-hmm.
feeling the sun? Are you feeling cold? For me, I actually feel dirt sometimes. I felt the wooden beam. What are you smelling? What are you hearing? They teach you in all of the remote viewing sessions that I've watched to use all those senses. And when I started learning to do that, it actually started helping some with the missing persons cases, depending on the case. Because it helps you broaden your horizons. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not, some people think, oh, it's about using coordinates. And not necessarily, it can. Sometimes the
Yeah.
government will say, okay, these are your coordinates.
Right.
But on some of the classes I was watching, they just gave you maybe a 4 or 5 different digit number, and they'll be like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, see where this takes you. What are you seeing? What are you smelling? Use your 5 senses. A lot of them would take you to certain places. Like one was the Eiffel Tower. Um, Another was, in Egypt, a place in Egypt, like I think a pyramid. So they will
Right.
actually say, "Okay, these are the numbers. Take your time, use your senses. What are you hearing, seeing?" And a lot of people actually start picking up, not necessarily on the exact landscape, but they would be able to say, "Okay, well, it's in the desert. I'm seeing maybe a triangular shape," and they would draw that. So it just really depends. But it takes focus, and it might not necessarily happen right away. For me, even to get into that remote viewing session that I did into the mine,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that led to an interdimensional experience. It didn't it was a mine when I first went in there, but I had Bigfoot standing there. I literally had Dogman. He wasn't
Wow.
standing up, he was, like, in the dog form, and I literally had my
Yeah.
hand in his fur. I
Wow.
told my guys, I'm like, "Am I losing it?" They're like, "No, that's Dogman you're touching." So but it wasn't vicious, and it sounds insane because 'cause I'm an IT person, so for me, I really struggle. That's my problem. I really struggle with it's like, am I just making this up? Because I'm into the whole cryptid thing. I believe in all of that.
Yeah.
There's so much more than any of us can possibly understand, and that medium that you interviewed would probably, if she didn't, tell you the same thing. It's just, anybody could do this. You just really have to broaden your horizons.
Yeah.
And that was one of the
Absolutely.
most interesting remote viewing sessions I've ever done, was that one right there with Bigfoot and then Dogman in one place. And I'm like, "Can you guys get along?" And they're like, "Yeah, we travel between the mines in Payson." And I'm like, "I didn't know Payson had Dogmen." And they're like, "Yeah." And when you think about it, like both Dogman and Bigfoot are huge furry creatures. If you see something
Yeah.
running through, you might not be able to tell what it is. It could be a Bigfoot or a Dogman. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, there's been more and more about Dogman. I think there have been a lot more sightings. Um,
Yeah,
but that was
I
a pretty
keep,
interesting thing.
right. Yes, it was. It's awesome to hear about it. When I first started doing this show, I hadn't really heard much about the dog man, or I would call him a
Yeah.
werewolf or something like that. But man, you start hearing all these experiences, and everybody's
Uh-huh.
starting to have the same type of stories. And I always tell everybody, not everybody's lying about this stuff.
No.
Because I always go into stuff with a, kind of a not a skeptical mentality, but I want to know the truth and proof. That's just the way I am. And to be honest, when I started this show, I was always wanted to talk about ghosts. That's really what interested me, is ghosts and spirits
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But now you can look behind me. I've talked to so many people about Bigfoot, and coming to find out that I live in kind of the mecca of Bigfoot
Yes.
sightings
Yeah.
here in East Tennessee. So I have just really got interested in Bigfoot and cryptids in general. So I never didn't know I was going to go down that path when I started doing this show, but I'm definitely have taken that fork in the road. But
Well, Corker, you probably heard about how some people think they are paranormal. There's the
well, that's what I
paranormal,
was going to ask you.
interdimensional. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think they're interdimensional, or are they like a undiscovered primate? What do you think?
Oh, there's so many different theories, and some people think all of the above. There's a couple of shows I watched recently, and my guides even said they're kind of all of the above. So
Yeah.
I've had interesting discussions with Bigfoot too. Actually, Bigfoot here in Payson. One, I think the first discussion was before I moved here, like a year before I moved here. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Hmm.
And my friend Deb and I were hearing them in her, like maybe within half a mile where she lived. There was like 2 or 3 of them at least, and it sounded like Star Valley was surrounded. And then I kept telling my guides I really want to communicate with one, and that night, and they said just be prepared for what happens. Don't doubt yourself, because as soon as we heard them, a few minutes later, I walked into the guest room that she had, and my guides were like, "Start talking," and I'm like, "What?" They're like, "Start talking. He's listening." And I'm like,
Wow.
"You can't, you're kidding me, right?" They said, "Lori, stop it. You need to start talking. You've got Bigfoot."
Listen to us.
Yeah. And so it's wild, because one of the most interesting things he told me is that, like, we call ourselves human.
Hmm.
What he told me is he's like, Bigfoot in general call themselves Odom. And I don't know if it's Odem, like Tohono Odom,
Hmm.
like there's a tribe here in Arizona. So it was kind of that sound. And just he actually had his partner was pregnant at the time. He told me, he showed me himself in a cave with a fire, and he had what he called his brother next to him. There's like 3 of them there, and she was pregnant. Now
Wow.
they have had the kid by now. I think he's like a year and a half, 2 years old by now.
Hmm.
But it's like she was telling me, like, I think the time that to give birth was like, it was longer than human, and you would think it would be shorter, but they actually were telling me it's longer, and that they go to caves when their partners are pregnant. They kind of go underground, and a lot of them are
Right.
underground, I
That makes
believe,
sense.
initially anyways, because
Yeah.
he was telling me they do. They hang out in the mines and things like that. Um, but yeah, he showed himself underground at that point with his partner, and she was the one I actually saw, from what he was telling me.
Wow.
And what was really interesting about this, because I doubt a lot, because like I said, I'm an IT person. I'm 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 so right-brained that I'm like, this can't be happening. And as soon as I told my friend who was driving the 4x4, I said, "Lucy, that can't be what I thought it was." That's when a rock came down the hill and hit her. And she was
Yep.
yelling at me, going, "Don't." She's like, "Don't doubt that. It just threw a rock at me." And so I thought that was really strange, the timing of that. And my guides are like, "See, it's trying to tell you to stop doubting, because
Yeah.
there are a lot of them out here in Payson." And like, I just started hearing about the Dogman thing. I didn't realize there were dogmen here, and they were telling me themselves, they're like, "Yes, we are here."
Right.
They might not. There's only certain people I think they want to show themselves to, but you kind of have to be open to it. But the dogmen I saw, I kind of saw some standing up as well. Their faces looked more like a wolf than other shows I've seen. But I think
Hmm.
shows recreate based on how the people describe them. But my
Yeah.
guides look at it, they're scary looking. But Lori, if you look at their face, the ones in Payson, their faces actually are more longer. The noses are longer. They actually look more like a typical wolf in the face.
Really?
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, that's what I was seeing. That's what they were telling me.
So
And the
is
fur that I
Dogman?
felt was matted. Uh-huh.
Would we call Dogman a werewolf, or is that just something that's on TV or something like that?
I hear not a werewolf. And I
Okay.
don't know. I mean,
Because
I
maybe a
think
werewolf
for
is human
people,
and turns into a dog or something like that. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, no, my guys are back here going, no, they're not werewolves. So
Okay.
it's people, they're they get pretty adamant. So, and even when I think I was talking to them about that when I was in the mine, they said, no, they're a different species.
Okay.
Not that they can't be. I've heard some pretty horrifying encounters people have had with them, but because I'm a medium and because I was talking to Bigfoot and have that weird telepathic connection, they were actually kind
Hmm.
of friendly to me when I was in there. I saw one that was literally on all fours. She was the one whose fur I was feeling. Then I kept going and ended up in this amazing cave. And my guys are like, "You're in an interdimensional space right now." One of my FBI agents who had passed was with me, and he was kind of
Wow.
guiding me. And he actually had me look to the right. He was like, "You need to look to the right." And that's when I saw this like a geothermal pond, and I saw the steam coming up, and I could feel it. And one of the werewolves actually walked into the pond, and he said, "Lori, follow me." And I actually got led into this pond, and not a big one, kind of a small one, and I could see other dogmen literally standing on the other side of the pond, and they weren't making a move. I wasn't scared or anything. I just literally walked into the pond. I could feel myself leaning up against, kind of like a concrete. And I was kind of just feeling myself in the water. And so that's really full remote viewing when it can take time to get into that environment, but you really have to open yourself up. And for
Hmm.
me, I have a tendency to get tunnel vision. That's why my FBI agent was like, start looking to the right. You have to really open yourself up to these sessions to make sure you don't
Yeah.
miss anything.
Yeah.
And I could see a
Wow.
Bigfoot. At the same time, he was kneeling down like a juvenile Bigfoot, and it looked like he was cleaning something or he had his hands in a small puddle of water, and he was just watching me. And there were lights all over the place in the water and outside the water, and that was one of the most intense remote viewing sessions I've had. And
Wow.
my guides were like, yes, there are dogmen and Bigfoot here, and they're residing together. In some places, it said
That
they're enemies.
really.
And so, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Some people say they have their own territories. Yeah, so it's Dogman's up and coming just like Bigfoot is, but
That's
they
amazing.
here I kept, yeah, it is. Yeah, when you're actually
Um.
touching a cryptid through a remote viewing session, that's
Wow.
insane.
I
So
don't know how you sleep at night. I really don't. I
I
mean,
don't
what am I gonna?
sometimes. I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What am I going to see tonight when I lay back down?
or
I do want to
here, and
talk
I've
about
heard
the.
things too.
Oh,
Hmm.
there's no doubt about that. I do want to talk about the what is it? Is it the Find Me group? I want to talk about that, but before we go there, I wouldn't be a good paranormal podcast host if I didn't ask a remote viewer that's on my show about aliens. Have you ever had any contact with aliens or seen any aliens remote viewing or anything like that?
Yeah, I actually have. Yes and no. I have my own that are spirit guides, and they show
Really?
themselves during. Oh no, yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm sure a lot of mediums, a lot of people do. And when clients come into me, I can pick up on that. So I have
Hmm.
Arcturians. I have a number of different alien or otherworldly guides. I hate calling them alien. I almost feel like I
Yeah,
insult them. But
yeah, yeah. I could see
there's a
that.
ranch here that I was telling you guys about
Extraterrestrial.
in Paranormal 411 called, yeah, called the Doll Baby. And I saw one. I think it was my first time out there with my friend Lucy. We were just doing an investigation out there, kind of an impromptu. And I just all of a sudden started seeing this thing. It was at the corral. It's an old ranch. No one lives out there. There's a lot of history though. And it's
Hmm.
an amazing place. And I started seeing this one step forward. It was tall, maybe about the size of Bigfoot, 8 or 9 feet. And it looked kind of like it was tall, thin. It looked like a mottled, I don't know, it was a bluish green. It wasn't, I didn't see it clearly, but I saw it. I was starting to see colors. And then we kind of started communicating with it. And it had kind of a creepy voice. And just the things I was talking about and asking, and it would answer back intelligently. And my guides are like, there's a lot of those interdimensional beings out here. Like, Corky, you've probably heard of some of the ranches, like, of course, Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's the one our ranch in Sedona,
Hmm.
places like the Meadow, things
Yeah.
like that. So they're all supposed to have that kind of interdimensional beings, and that's
Hmm.
what this one was.
Wow.
And he
This
just,
was
yeah,
in
I could actually see the
Arizona.
color on him. Yeah, it's like maybe
Yeah.
half an hour from where I live. It's a really pretty
Really?
area.
Wow.
And my spirit guides kept saying people don't realize that this place, this ranch, this property is just as interesting as Skinwalker Ranch. They're like, this place has a power of its own. And
Yeah.
so every time I go there, there's spirits that open up. There's a guy that was a police officer. He wasn't on duty. He was from Idaho, I believe, but he was visiting. And this is supposedly like 10 years ago. And all of a sudden, he told me he just kind of disappeared. I don't know if it was a portal or something paranormal, something really unusual happened to him. And I was taking pictures out there, and my guides are like, make sure you get a picture of the barn because that's where he disappeared. And so it was really strange. And he told me it was like a portal, something about a portal being involved. So I don't know if he's actually still alive. It was just, it's mind blowing. And so
Wow.
I asked some friends around here. I have a friend who's a cop, but he never heard about it. And I said, well, this guy wasn't from Arizona and he wasn't on duty. So I don't know if no one knew where he was, is what he was telling me. He's like, so I was traveling around to a lot of places in Arizona, so no one would have necessarily thought to look here for him. But he was pretty talkative.
Wow.
So it's interesting. I don't know if that involved a portal. That's kind of what I was getting.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's trapped, but there was a really interesting light. I saw his flashlight and I had to manipulate the photo for like half an hour to get it. But there was a very bright light and I thought, no, that's not an orb. It's too bright. And my guide's like, no, that's his flashlight that you're seeing.
Wow.
He wanted you to see him. So that was one of the most interesting photos that I've ever gotten.
Yeah, that's
It's just
fascinating.
insane. Yeah.
So, what
Yeah.
came out of that? Did you ever figure out anything, or that's just something you don't know what's going on with?
No, yeah, because there's a cop here that's a good friend, but he had never heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I don't know if any other police officers would have either. I think he checked around. And I said, this is only 10 years ago. It was recent, but he didn't know anybody here in town. When you think about it, how many disappearances are there that, people are like, they don't know until years
Yeah.
later, so I don't know if it's essentially a cold case. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He was traveling all over. There's a lot of places in Arizona he was going to, from my understanding. So he had
Mm-hmm.
this trip he was taking. So no one thought, okay, well, he's going to Payson. We know he's in Payson, so we're going to look for him and see if we can. I don't think that was ever traced from what he was saying.
Wow.
Because like, no, I'm not. I'm not from Arizona. I don't know if it was a last minute trip. Is kind of my understanding. I just don't think anybody even thought to look for him here, or otherwise something
Absolutely
might have turned up
fascinating.
from it. Yeah, it is.
Wow.
It is. It really. Even
Yeah.
Lucy was like, "Oh my God!" She's like, "The picture you got was insane." She's like, "You can tell that's actually a flashlight," and
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
nobody out there. No one ever goes
Wow.
out there.
That is fascinating. I tell you what, that's fascinating. Um,
Yeah.
well, that'll be a good segue into this question. The Find Me group, how did you get involved with them? And just tell us a little bit about that.
So I used to live in Phoenix, and Payson's only an hour and a half, 2 hours from Phoenix. And there was a
Yeah.
guy there's a store there, that is called the Astrology Store. I think it's still there. Um, and I knew somebody who owned it. I'd been in and out of there buying merchandise and stuff when I used to live in Phoenix, and I knew the owner, and he was really nice, and I knew he was involved with the Find Me group.
Yeah.
So he kind of I think he ended up introducing me to the former CIA agent that manages it. And I
Wow.
just talked to him and told him I was interested. So I ended up I talked to him first, and then there's 3 cases that they give mediums to test you on to see if
Really?
you're real, because they have a lot of fake mediums that try
Hmm.
to get into those,
Yeah.
or they might just not be well developed with their abilities. I don't think it's that they're fake. They just need more experience. But so there was another medium that I tested with. I think she might have been one of the first ones on the team when he first started. And they'll give you 3 cases and say, okay, is this person deceased or alive? What was the circumstances of their death? And you just get as many details as you can. And then I did that, and she called me, and I was so nervous. I thought, what if I didn't get this right? And she's like, no, I can tell you the real deal because of all the details you picked up on. So
Wow.
that really validates that you have abilities. That's kind of the point. You're like, okay, maybe I'm not as, not that I ever thought I was fake, but you start to realize, okay, there's a lot more details that I'm getting right than I realize when you get
Yeah.
invited to be part of a group like that. So yeah, and I think it's been about 4 years now.
Wow. There's a national missing person case going on right now, and I won't mention any names, but have you got any thoughts
Hmm.
about that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's one I just got done working, but then there's another one that's, he said, he told us as the mediums as part of this group, some of the mediums are already picking up on stuff about the case, and
Hmm.
if you feel like you can give the name of the person, the suspect or any other suspects, just let me know. But yeah, that's one out of Arizona. I mean, there
I
could
didn't
be others
realize
as well.
that.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
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 there's
we better
there's
not.
probably a number. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we may not want to get that, draw no
No.
attention to that. Just mind our own business there, I guess. But have you ever helped locate anybody that's went missing that's been a successful, you've helped and stuff like that?
And that's the problem with this because, like, there's 100 mediums. So he tells us from the
Hmm.
get go, you could be helping with something, but you're not necessarily going to know it because there's too many
Right.
other mediums involved. Like I said at the beginning, you could have 10 mediums that pick up on a similar location to where a body might be or where a
Hmm.
living person might be, but you're going to have come up with different details about it. So that kind of makes it hard
Hmm.
unless
To
you
know if you
literally get
didn't, yeah.
every aspect and say, okay, well, this is a suspect. This is what they look like. And you get every aspect right, then they can come back to you. But, he told me from the get go that that doesn't happen. He's like, it's more likely you're not going to know because most of these are cold cases. And even with, a lot of mediums working on it, that doesn't guarantee you're going to find the person because there's only so many resources that can follow up on the leads. So that's the frustrating thing about it is just not knowing. So,
Right, right.
um, I mean, yeah.
Well, that's golly bum. All this is fascinating. I didn't realize we was going to get into Bigfoot and stuff like that, man. Absolutely fascinating. But I guess tell us a little bit about your books you've written and stuff like that. Anything you want to get out there?
Let's see. Um, so I have four murder mysteries. The ancient ones you had mentioned in the intro, and Caves of the Watchers, and then Whispers Among the Ruins. Those are all part of a series, and they're in that
Hmm.
order. I wrote them in that order, and they were published in that order. And then Visions of Time is kind of a separate book through an actual publisher, and the others are self-published. But most people are pretty interested in them. They involve the paranormal, metaphysical, supernatural. The character, there's a psychic medium as a character, and then she has a love interest, and they're all pretty interesting. There's Native American characters in there as well. Um, so a lot of paranormal stuff. Most people are pretty interested. They like it from the murder mystery perspective.
Right.
Minus Whispers Among the Ruins and Visions are probably my favorite. Visions started out as Native Heart, but then when I signed on with the publisher, then it was turned into Visions of Time, and it was a much stronger version. So I was pretty proud of that one. But I had a children's book I was working on that kind of got put on hold for now.
Right.
um, yeah. So, and that I'm trying to get kind of the spiritual aspect out there to the children's community. A
Hmm.
lot of the same stuff that I'm talking about with you was in the children's book. So eventually I'm hoping to get out there to a really good publisher or
Yeah, I think
self-publish
that'd be
it.
awesome. I think that'd
Yeah,
be
it's a lot of the
something
same
great to put out
topics.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because I feel like kids need to learn more about the spiritual aspect because, like, just with Bigfoot and people think these are solid beings, but I think there's paranormal and interdimensional aspects to a lot of the stuff that people are starting to experience. And
Yeah. That's awesome. Um, when it comes to paranormal, what's one thing that you said that it comes to you in dreams or it comes to you in different ways. Have you ever had anything that's came to you and actually made you think, man, I don't want to do this anymore?
it can be scary because sometimes I'll hear things at night, and so it sounds kind of funny, but I'll have to have fans on at night. I have to have
Yeah.
a radio or my phone, like rain noises on, because if I don't, I will hear things. I can hear whispering. I'll hear things try to talk to me. One time I heard somebody saying help. So it gets a little scary and freaky. It makes it hard to sleep. So
I
I have to
guarantee it.
have yeah. And I've talked to other people it's the same way. So if it's too quiet, I just can't. I'm just waiting there to hear and experience something. I used to work with a group of paranormal investigators, and they're a really good group actually. But with my work schedule, it gets a little hard because I work on a lot of missing persons cases as well.
Hmm.
And there's some interesting experiences there. We've had it wasn't too often, but there was one time a couple of people got scratched, but I think they were back there instigating, and I said, "Don't do that because
Right.
there's something back there and we're not sure about, so you really have to be careful." Um, but yeah, there's things I will see. We've seen shadows. I'll, sometimes feel things around me. I'll have things, I have some scary looking spirit guides actually, and some of them are otherworldly. I mean, they're terrifying looking, and you wouldn't think this would be something that would be a spirit guide, but but they actually can be. When you think about that, they
Yeah.
can be pretty protective. I mean, these things are downright. I have one that looks like a bear. It's not a devil dog, but it's freaking huge, and
Really?
it's got red eyes, and I've been in contact with Bigfoot. One of them is a spirit guide that he's a living Bigfoot that is actually in Oregon, and he's
Hmm.
an older, gray hair and everything. So if you can really open yourself up to this, it's amazing what you can see and communicate with. Because it's
Wow.
not just deceased loved ones that are spirit guides. It's like I said earlier, it's an energy connection. A lot of them are from reincarnation,
Yeah.
from past lives, and we that can include cryptids. A lot of people have cryptids as guides and don't know it, and it's like, and then they're like mine or aliens, otherworldly beings, whether alive or deceased. It's amazing what you can get in touch with. You just have to
I
open
get.
your
Yeah.
mind to it.
I guess it could be anything from creation, because life is
Yes.
life. I guess it could be anything.
Yep.
That's absolutely fascinating. Um, when I'll try to end it with this. If you could leave my listeners with one key insight about anything paranormal, intuition, spirit connections, or anything like that, what would it be?
Um, Maybe along the spirit guide, just keep your mind open, because anybody that's
Hmm.
listening to your show, a lot of people are scientific minded, but they're leaning more towards, the other end of the spectrum, just because of people are having more and more experiences. Just keep your mind open. For those people who want to connect with the other side, and a lot of people do. Everyone's asking me, how do I connect? Whether you
Hmm.
start out with a pendulum, you just have to trust yourself. Just kind of for me, when I started writing my second book, that's kind of when everything started happening. So there's different ways you can get in touch. Just trust what you're seeing, what you're hearing. Like I mentioned earlier, start talking to a spirit guide if you feel, a lot of people can feel a presence. Just
Hmm.
take note with your five senses. Whether it's, some people smell things, you smell perfume from a deceased loved one, or just a perfume they're not familiar with. Like they're like, where's this coming from? Just
Right.
open yourself up and ask, okay, who is this? Get a sense for if it's good or bad, because sometimes it
Hmm.
might not be so good. But you can actually communicate with any spirit guide. It's even if you're investigating a place, like doing a paranormal investigation, be careful, because there's all kinds of different energies in places like that. But for people
Wow.
looking to open up to their guides, just start talking to them. If this is something you feel is positive, a deceased loved one, a
Hmm.
friend, then just start talking. And because when I tell people that, they're like, yeah, I do that. And I can start sensing them around me. They can feel them touching them. And you do have to be careful, but most of the time with spirit guides, you're not going to have anything to worry about. I've done readings for people, and they're like, "Well, shouldn't you close the portal?" And I'm like, "There's nothing to close. These are spirit guides. These are these are protected beings. We don't need to do a whole ritual. So after a reading,
Yeah.
so most are very protective. And I can actually touch objects and pick up on history of objects and get visuals
Wow.
that way as well. So yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's one of my favorite things to do is,
I
I
guarantee
touched a
you that would be
mhm.
awesome.
Yeah, there's a museum that hired me, to do a reading on a gun, and all the stuff I started picking up on was just kind of mind blowing. And then he invited me to a ranch here near Payson, and
Hmm.
I started picking up on a lot of prehistoric spirits, because there are Indian ruins out there. And we just literally,
Yeah.
started talking, and I was giving messages, picking up on shaman that were in the area, and they were
Hmm.
giving me the history. And so it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Anybody can, yeah.
This is absolutely fascinating. But
Mm,
I'm going to ask you one more question. I'm going to be respectful of your time, but when you were telling me about the spirit guides and stuff like that, and you said you got to make sure everything's positive, and but what
mhm.
happens? What would you do? What do you tell people that if you find something you may think it's negative? What are you supposed to do if that happens?
Well, a lot of us are protected in one way or another with spirit guides, but at the
Uh-huh.
locations, when I would work with this team, the owner of the group would say, okay, you're not allowed to come home with any of us.
Right.
And you just I tell people, just imagine like yourself surrounded in a bubble of light,
Uh-huh.
and positivity. Just ask, okay, whatever is negative here, I'm asking you to stay away. Only positive communication is allowed. And in most cases, I didn't encounter too much negativity with this particular group. Not that there wasn't in certain
Uh-huh.
locations, but You just have to make it clear, just surround. Some people come in wearing crosses, and you just have
Mhm.
to come out and tell, only the positive is allowed in. You're not allowed to follow me home, that kind of thing. I hear voices, but it's not like it's anything negative. And if it
Right,
is, my
right.
guides will say, "There's something negative, and you need to ask it to leave, or they'll tell me what to do."
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
had really bizarre encounters in dreams where there was a shadow person that literally I saw myself in a car, and it got in with me, and that's when I woke up, and it was mind-blowing because I saw one of my spirit guides get thrown up against the wall because he was supposed to have been watching in the dream and protecting me, and
Mhm.
there's a huge dude that literally threw one of my spirit guides up against the wall, and the guy was like, "I deserved it."
Wow.
So it's mind-blowing what happens in dreams, and people don't realize it. They don't realize all the different levels there is. A lot of spirits and ghosts are in the astral plane, but there's like 7 or 8 planes above that, so it's
Wow.
amazing. Yeah, no, you could talk about hours, just some of the things I've
Uh,
seen when I've woken up, and it's mind-blowing, so
well, you're a fascinating person, and I wanna just say again, thank you for coming on here and talking to me tonight. This has been awesome. I've got 50,000 more questions I could ask you, but I wanna be respectful of your time. Maybe I can get you to come back on here again sometime, and I'll ask you some more
well, sure.
questions because I could do
Okay.
this. I could sit and talk to you all night, man. But tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and any kind of new projects you got coming up. Just let everybody know about it.
I do have a website. It's called WordPress, and so you can find me on WordPress. I am on Facebook. I have just Lori Hines, or
Hmm.
I have another page called Lori Hines Psychic Medium. I am on Instagram. I have a job where I'm traveling down to Phoenix 3 days a week, so I haven't had quite as much time to focus on the pages. But you'll find my social media. Usually, Facebook is where I'll announce any like radio interviews, events coming up, things like that. I've been working on so many cold cases and missing persons cases, so that's where my focus has been, as well as
Hmm.
studying remote viewing. My goal
Yeah.
would be to actually get on with the government, maybe start doing remote viewing with them as well. So I have to start looking into opportunities with that,
Yeah.
because that's the big time right there. So, but yeah, Facebook is the main way to find me, and then WordPress as well. I have a blog. I've published articles related to Bigfoot and spirit guide communication, so those are pretty helpful.
Absolutely fascinating, Lori. Once again, thank you for coming on here tonight. I really appreciate it. And maybe I can get you to come back on here again. We can have another conversation because I could keep go. I've got a list of stuff I could just go on, and that's just I'll have
I've
you
got a lot of
talking to you.
interesting stories too,
Yeah,
so
you're a
yeah.
very fascinating person, and this has been a fascinating conversation. But yeah, thank you for coming on, and for everybody else, we'll catch you next week. Bye, everybody.
Okay, thanks, Corky.
The unknown awakens, hear the echoes grow loud. We're diving deep, join the curious crowd. In the paranormal war room, we take flight, bringing the spooky vibes, shadows and light. With every beat, the legends we explore, unleashing the spirits. We're ready for more. Aliens striking down like thunder from the skies. Cryptids lurking near, in the darkness they rise. Paranormal tales that will twist your mind. Tune into the mystery, leave the norm behind. In the war room we fight, with the strange insight, unveiling truths in the paranormal war room. We take flight, bringing the spooky vibes, shadows and light. With every beat, the legends we explore, unleashing the spirits. We're ready for more. So hit that subscribe, don't be left in the dark. Join us in the war, let's make our mark.